Hello, everybody. Happy, marvelous Monday to you. Karissa here. And I'm excited that you are joining me today. Today, we are discussing the storm of evictions that are coming. So, if you know someone who is a landlord or a tenant, go ahead and tell them to tune in because this is going to be a segment that is worth watching. And if you are watching the replay, let me say thank you so much for tuning in. Just a little bit about me. I'm Karissa Spann. I am the landlord and tenant coach, and this is what I do each and every Monday right here on my social media page. I am on Facebook as well as YouTube. So please find me on my YouTube channel and click that subscribe button. Please also find me on Facebook and like the page. I share information that helps landlords, owners, property managers, tenants, renters, real estate investors, and those who know someone in any of those categories. So today we are talking about the eviction storm it's going to hit hard, and people, I don't think people are really prepared for what's coming. And so today I'm just going to give some tips and some information that will hopefully help landlords as well as tenants to navigate through this very scary time for so many people. Listen, it's no secret that we're still in a national or global pandemic. All right. And so if you've been watching the news, or maybe you've heard on the radio, or maybe you have been impacted by COVID-19, it's still here. A lot of people are negatively impacted by it. Landlords have gone months without receiving payments. Tenants have gone for almost a year, some without even paying rent. And so the question has been, well, Karissa, what can I do as a landlord? What can I do legally to help me get through this? Or tenants have asked, well, Karissa, are there any resources available that you know of that I can tap into that will help me make these rental payments? Well, here's the thing. Landlords can do a lot to prepare, because what you don't know as a landlord can and will hurt you. And so this information that I am sharing today, it costs nothing. It's free 99 for the information that I'm sharing. So please feel free to share this information with someone that you know who is a landlord. And if you are a landlord or a housing provider, please take good notes on today, because what I'm going to share with you may help you should you have to go to court. All right. And tenants, do know that there are resources available in many jurisdictions and communities that will help you pay your rent. You can't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be ashamed and don't be embarrassed. So here's a one thing that I would strongly recommend that landlords and tenants do together, because together is better. If you are a landlord and you may have a tenant who is not tech savvy, or maybe you have tenants who are not on social media or can get on the internet or even know where to go to get information, what I would strongly recommend is to look up resources. Google COVID rental assistance in that particular jurisdiction. Doesn't matter where the rental property is, doesn't matter which state or jurisdiction it is, because this information is applicable to so many people in different states and cities. Okay, so do a Google search for COVID rental assistance. There is money in the community. I've shared this many times before. There is money available for tenants to tap into to get assistance with paying their delinquent rent. Now, let me just pause and say this, that there may be guidelines on getting the money. Not all pots of money is available for everybody. So, for instance, if you are a tenant, or if you're a landlord and you have a tenant that's in the Section 8 program, there may be a different pot of money available just for them. Okay, so that means that if your tenant is on Section 8, for instance, I'll take DC. DC has money that's available for tenants, but then there's a different pot of money that they can go to get it, because they won't qualify if they're in the Section 8 program or some sort of subsidized housing program. And here's why. Because typically Tenants in those type of housing programs, their rent is already based off of their income. Okay, so usually many of those tenants who are in some sort of housing subsidy program, they may not be paying the full contract rent. So they may have a portion that they're paying, and the government has a portion that the government is paying on that tenant's behalf. And again, it's based off of their income. So because their rent is usually 30, not more than 40% of their income, their rent is already affordable. So in cases like that, the government is saying, well, hey, we're already paying their rent. Their rent is subsidized, and there really should be no reason for the tenant to not pay their rent. So if a tenant is in some sort of housing subsidy program, and let's say they are out of work, they lost their job, or they just lost their income, right? In those situations, those tenants can go to that agency to say, hey, my income has changed. Can you change my rent? And their rent would decrease. And then also, if they gain employment or income, their rent will go up. And so in those situations, there is some funding that may not apply to those tenants. But if you have a market tenant, or if you are a market renter and you've fallen on hard times because of the pandemic, you're out of work, you're sick because of the pandemic, you just can't go to work, you should be communicating with your landlord. You want to, as a tenant, the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you are contacting your landlord to let them know that you have been impacted by COVID-19. You are out of work. You want to also explain, make sure this is in writing. You want to also explain that being evicted or being evicted could cause you to become homeless. You want to be careful to put all of that in writing, because when the national CDC eviction moratorium is up, or whatever moratorium that is going on in your particular jurisdiction, is not what you know, is what you can prove. And so it has to be in writing. You have to convey that information to your landlord. All right. So that's the first thing that I do want to share. Hello, Pete. Thank you so much for joining me today. And guys, if you have comments, if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. I will definitely take those comments. I did put a disclaimer in my description box that if you want your comments to show up, please look at the link in the description box. You do have to go to StreamYard and give Facebook or YouTube permission for your comments to show up. Otherwise, I may not be able to see your comments. So let me pause for a little while, because I am live on Facebook and I'm also live on YouTube. So I just want to check some of the comments that have come in from YouTube. And please feel free to share this segment today. All right, give me one moment. And if this is your first time tuning in or watching me, I'm asking that you just let me know where you're watching from, because I love to know where my viewers are tuned in at. All right, so Pete, where are you tuned in from? Where are you watching from, Pete? Because I love to know, like I said, where my viewers are watching from. I always like to include information for viewers in different jurisdictions. Hello, Caprice. Thank you so much for tuning in, and happy Monday to you. Good evening, Lynn. Thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful. Thank you so much. Hello, Jackie. Happy marvelous Monday to you. You have been preaching and sending information. Okay, that's good to know. I need to chat with you offline, Jackie. Okay, Jackie, your comment says 14 million COVID resources, $14 million available in COVID resources. That's just for Washington, D.C. alone. Wow, that's a lot of money. Listen, guys, there is a lot, like I said, there is money available in different jurisdictions for non-payment of rent. So please reach out and make sure you are tapping into resources that's available just for you as a tenant. Hello, Tabitha. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, Pete, I see that you're tuned in from Baltimore. Thank you so much for that. All right, Caprice, you're tuned in from Michigan. How is the weather out there? In my area, we got some snow within the past week. I was not happy about that. I was on last week for my birthday, and it was snow that I was not really happy about, but I like the snow. It just kind of limited me on what I can do for my birthday. Hello, Pearline. Thank you so much for tuning in from Atlanta. Guys, I'm excited that you're all here today. And if you tuned in last week, I kind of surprised a lot of you because it was my birthday and I gave out some money, cash apps for my birthday. So I just had a birthday party. So anyway, I'm going to get into the information. Caprice, you had a lot of snow there. Wow, you can keep the snow. I'm like Pete. I don't really care for too much of it. I like to play in it. I like to watch it. But as far as moving around, I don't do that so much because I have plates and screws in my right foot. So the metal just doesn't do well with the cold. So, but anyway, we're here today. And so I'm going to get into the discussion today. So as a landlord, some of the things that you can do to prepare for the end of the eviction moratorium. Number one, all right, take notes. If you're a landlord, if you know someone who is, please share this information. Please make sure that before you take your tenant to court, that you have a business license or a renter's license. A lot of states and cities are now making it a requirement. Now, just depending on where the rental property is, it was previously a requirement. But now, more than ever, courts are wanting to make sure that landlords are running a legit and legal rental property business. So now is the time to get your business in order. Now is the time to mind your business. Make sure that you have a business license and or a renter's license to legally rent out your property. Because if you try to take the tenant to court and you don't have all of your ducks in a row, guess what? You're not going to be able to evict the tenant, although they have not paid their rent. And they could owe you. Let's say they have not paid rent in almost a year. Let's say in March. Okay. Let's say the rent is $1,000 per month. And the tenant has gone 12 months of not paying $1,000. Somebody do the math for me and put that in the comment section. How much rent is owed to the landlord? Okay, so 12 months of $1,000. That's how much that landlord is expecting for that tenant to pay. So let's say the tenant can apply for the financial assistance or the resources that I talked about, right? And they just decide not to. They just decide that they're not going to cooperate or participate with the landlord, right? So $12,000. Thank you, Samara. Thank you so much for tuning in today, beautiful. So Lex, thank you so much for tuning in, Miss Ellis. $12,000. Okay, that's a lot of money owed for rent. All right. And if this landlord is trying to take the tenant to court in a jurisdiction where a renter's or a business license is required, and although, yes, the tenant is responsible for not paying the rent, chances are the court will not allow that tenant to be evicted for non-payment of rent. Hello, Author Lynette Jewell. Thank you so much for tuning in, boss lady from North Carolina. And that's the reality of it, guys. Pearline, your question says, are there late fees? Great question. There are no late fees. In many jurisdictions, landlords cannot charge a late fee during the national CDC eviction moratorium. Late fees and fines and penalties cannot be added to what is now delinquent because of COVID-19. All right. So landlords, make sure that you are prepared. Make sure that you are minding your business. Okay. Cooperate, participate if you are a tenant. Allow that landlord to make repairs. Okay. Don't make it complicated for this landlord to get in to make sure that repairs are made on the property. Because here's the thing. When repairs go incomplete and landlords are not able to make repairs, usually that hurts the landlord in many ways that a lot of people don't imagine. So let's say there is a leaky faucet and it continues to run, or maybe the garbage disposal is leaking, right? So I'll use a garbage disposal, for instance. If that repair goes incomplete and not taken care of over a period of time, it creates a larger situation, which costs more money. And on top of that, whenever there are water issues, typically environmental hazards come up, such as mold. Okay, so if you have a landlord that is willing to make repairs, please work with that landlord and participate. Allow that landlord to come in to make repairs. Because I promise you, there are some landlords who I passionately call slum landlords who do not make repairs. If you are living in one of those rental properties, I do feel so bad for tenants who are experiencing situations like that. There are so many landlords who don't have money to make repairs. Okay, so as a tenant, to prepare for this storm of evictions that may be coming down the pipe, that may be coming your way, like I said, communicate with your landlord. Ask that landlord if they would be willing to enter into, or to allow you to enter into, a repayment agreement. You want to do that without going to court if possible. Because if you should happen to go to court and that landlord gets a judgment for possession of that rental property, that is a strike against you that goes on your record. And certainly it would be a challenge. It would be difficult for many people to rent again. And it's unfortunate that it is going to happen to a lot of people. All right, Pete, you said leaks are the worst. Not all tenants will speak up about a problem. I definitely can agree with you on that, Pete. And here's why I strongly recommend that landlords, even in the midst of a pandemic, and definitely practice safety and do it as cautiously as possible. I strongly recommend landlords to conduct inspections of the rental property. As a landlord, it is your job to make sure that your rental property is decent, safe, and sanitary. Do not rely on tenants to tell you when there is a problem. Here is why. Some tenants don't realize that there is an issue. Okay, some tenants may not realize that the chirping of a smoke detector means that the battery is dead or it needs to be replaced. If, for instance, in the smoke detector situation, it's chirping, it's beeping, it makes too much noise, it always goes off, so the tenant removes the battery. How many people know or have done that? All right, can I get an amen? Okay, I have had plenty of tenants who have taken batteries out of the smoke detector, okay, or just failed to replace batteries in the smoke detector. True story. I was assisting with managing a large property in Washington, D.C. a few years back. And in this particular apartment community, the head of household, well, we don't know where she was. She was just absent. She was gone for at least 4 or 5 months. So whoever was in the property, they took all the batteries out of the smoke detector. So this apartment was on the top floor in a rental community. And Samara, you may be aware or have heard of this situation. So anyway, the squatter, I'll just say the person was a squatter. We don't know who the person was. So whoever was in the rental property, it wasn't the tenant. It wasn't the head of household. They were smoking something and it caught on fire. So the mattress caught on fire. They left the apartment. There were no smoke detectors that would have alarmed anybody else in the building. So that whole apartment went up in smoke. I mean, everything was burned to a crisp. I mean, down to the bricks of the building. And so it really created a bad situation, because not only was that apartment damaged, but it also damaged the fire, the water, it damaged other units. Now, had that rental apartment had batteries in the smoke detector, somebody would have heard the smoke detector going off. All right. So please make sure that you recognize the importance of the smallest things, because it really does make a big difference. All right, Pete, your comment says inspectors will fail the property just because of the smoke detectors. Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. I'm a housing inspector. In addition to being a property manager, in addition to being a property manager educator. And so I find that a lot of properties that I go out to inspect, like I said, a smoke detector is really something small, but that is considered an emergency. That is, in many jurisdictions, a 24-hour violation if there's not an operable smoke detector. And so please know what the law says. Landlords, you are responsible. So here's the thing. If you are not comfortable going in to make repairs, I would just take my tenants. If they contact you to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, I need batteries in my smoke detector, or my smoke detector is going off and it's making noise. If you're not comfortable entering the property, take them a care package, take them batteries for the smoke detectors. So let's say that it's a 3-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom house. Please make sure that there is an operable smoke detector in each bedroom. If that rental property is all electric, then you don't need a carbon monoxide smoke detector. If there is any gas, so let's say there's a gas stove or a gas furnace, please make sure that there is at least one operating carbon monoxide or combination smoke detector. You want to spend the extra dollar or two because it can save you thousands in the long run. Does that make sense? And I hope this is helping somebody. All right, so I'm going to pause because I have questions coming in from YouTube. Give me one moment, guys. And feel free to share this. Sharing is caring. I do appreciate the likes. I appreciate the sharing. All right, so I am taking a question here from YouTube. And the question is, what happens if my tenant does not cooperate? Great question. Thank you so much. So if you have a tenant, I sometimes talk about the tenants from hell that just don't cooperate no matter how great you are as a landlord, no matter what you do. Sometimes you just have those tenants that just, they're like, to hell with it, I'm not letting you in, even if you are the owner. Listen, I've had a landlord who reached out to me, a client of mine, if you will. And she told me, she says, Karissa, I just want to burn the house down with the tenants in it. To hell with the house. And I couldn't believe it. But sometimes you have those people who are renting property and they just won't let landlords in to make repairs, no matter how hard they try. Maybe they wake up on the wrong side of the bed every day. I don't know. I can't make any type of sense out of it. If you have a landlord that's trying to make repairs, why they would refuse or, not allow the landlord in to make repairs. But in any event, if you have a tenant who is failing to allow you in, at this point, the only thing that you can do is document. Document, document, document. And again, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And so if you're trying to get in to make repairs, the tenant is not cooperating or just flat out refusing, document it. Send that tenant a letter letting them know, listen, on today's date, February the 8th, we tried to enter to make repairs to do ABC, XYZ. Please contact us to reschedule a time that works best for you. Now, the tenant may or may not give you a call. The tenant may or may not follow up. But the only thing that you can do is the best that you can do is try to make those repairs. All right, Pete, your comment says 24-hour notice. That's usually in the lease. That's true, Pete. Now, in some jurisdictions, however, Pete, the laws have changed. In some areas, it's now 48 hours. So it's definitely in the landlord's best interest to know what the law says in that particular jurisdiction. But definitely give that tenant advance notice that you are coming. All right. I would strongly recommend that if you are a landlord and you're not familiar, you're not knowledgeable, or maybe you're just not comfortable going to the rental property by yourself, take someone with you. You definitely want to make sure that you are taking pictures of deficiencies. Okay, let me just strongly recommend that you take pictures of deficiencies. Now, before you go into your tenant's home, taking pictures, please explain to your tenant in advance that you are only taking pictures of things that has to be repaired. All right. So anything that has to be repaired, you want to let that tenant know in advance. Here's why. Because you never want to put yourself in a position where that tenant thinks that you're now taking pictures of their personal belongings in their home. You have to respect their privacy. Do not cause a tenant to feel like you are violating them, and please don't ever violate tenants. So please be integral, do the right thing, only take pictures of deficiencies. All right, Caprice, you said send them a letter by mail. It shows time and date. I definitely would agree with you on that. So even if you have to do certified mail, follow up in writing, certified mail, put it on a door. And if you leave it on a door, take a picture of it on a door as well. So you're in the tenant's rental home, right? And you're taking pictures of deficiency, but you also want to make a note of what needs to be done. So when you're in the home, don't just go off of what you think you know. Take it from a housing inspector. This is what I do. I've been in property management and real estate for well over 28 years. So go room to room. You're going to look at all the walls, look at all the doors. You're going to look at the floor. You want to open and close the doors to make sure that they open and close properly. If it has a lock on it, it must lock. If the window open and closes, you want to definitely make sure it has a screen. You want to document all of that. Okay. You want to look at the plumbing fixture, turn the kitchen sink on, flush the toilet. You want to make sure that when you flush the toilet, that the toilet is not running. You want to look at the base of the toilet to make sure that water is not leaking out the base of the toilet once it's flushed. One of the things that I do is as I'm flushing the toilet, I'll just kind of lean on the toilet with my leg just to make sure that it's not rocky, right? Because a toilet is not supposed to wobble, okay? Weeble wobble, fall over, but they don't fall down. A toilet is supposed to be in place. So if you put pressure, you apply pressure on the toilet and it rocks, that means it must be secured to the floor. Okay. Thank you for that comment, Caprice. So you want to turn on if there is a bathtub. You want to turn on the shower. So when the shower is turned on, does it leak? Is water coming from the shower and the faucet? Because if that's happening, then the diverter might need to be replaced or the diverter stem. Okay, so you definitely want to do that. Hello, Kenyatta. How are you, big brother? Thank you so much for tuning in and happy marvelous Monday to you. Pete, you says, I'm always tightening closet, the closest bolts in the toilet. Absolutely. You want to tighten up anything that will present to be a problem because here's why. Something as simple as tightening up a bolt or a screw, that can save you thousands of dollars in a plumbing repair bill. I promise you, easily. You get a plumber out that will come and he's taking care of your issue that has gone on for so long, whether you knew about it or not. He's not going to care that you didn't know. He's just going to charge you for the repair of that bill. So save yourself a lot of money and take this free advice that I'm giving you and just put a little bit more into that rental property. Thank you, Pete. So as I've indicated, go from room to room, looking at everything. So one of the things that I do, I can do some minor carpentry repairs, Pete. So don't laugh at me. You know, I'm cut from a different cloth. So true story, guys, I do make some repairs. So actually, when I'm doing inspections in rental properties, I usually have on a tool belt. Some of my tenants, they get a kick out of it. They get a little surprised when they see me making repairs, but it's just what I do. I'm a daddy's girl. My dad raised me. So it is what it is. So, but in any event, I can do anything except for electrical. So what I do is I do have a GFI tester. And so as I'm going through the rental property, I am testing all outlets to make sure they are properly grounded. Okay. Hello, Nikisha. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, you love the background. Thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that, cuz. Pete, you said, I want to see this tool belt. Okay. As a matter of fact, next Monday, I'm going to show you the tool belt. Okay. I'm going to wear it just for you, Pete. I'll take a picture and I'll inbox it to you. So, but one of the things that I do is I will use my GFI tester and I am testing every outlet in the rental property. And I'm not testing just for power because you can have an electrician might just come in. You can get an electrician to come in and test it to see if the outlet is working, just to see if it has power. That's fine. Just because it has power doesn't mean that it's properly grounded. So I'm careful to check to make sure that it is properly grounded, because if you get a tenant in there and they overloaded with lots of things plugged in, the kids, they got their game systems, they have TVs plugged up, they have all these other things plugged in. And if that outlet is improperly grounded, it could create an electrical hazard and start a fire. So you definitely don't want that. So take the time to make the investment to do these checks, because again, the small things do matter. Perlin, you said send the picture. I'll send you the picture of me and my tube belt. As a matter of fact, I have one that I can share with you guys. So you're testing the electrical, you're looking at the plumbing, and you don't have to be a licensed professional to do an inspection. You just want to go in and do a visual. Look at the ceiling. All right. Is the fixture working? The light fixture working? Turn on the lights. Are there light bulbs in place? Open and close the refrigerator door. You're not looking to see if your tenants have food. That's not what you're doing. But when you look inside that refrigerator, what I want you to take a look at is that refrigerator gasket. If it's ripped, if it's torn, or if it's missing, get that model and serial number and order a gasket for the refrigerator. Here's why. Because the tenant's food has to be protected. You want to make sure that it's properly cooling the food, because if something happens and a tenant say, oh, well, I told my landlord that my refrigerator wasn't working or my refrigerator was leaking, they didn't make any repairs. Now that could be an ugly situation that you don't want to find yourself in, or the tenant expect for you to replace their food or something like that. All right, so you want to do that. You want to make sure that the stove is working properly. So if it's a gas stove, turn on every knob to make sure that the gas is working properly. Now, in a situation where the tenant is responsible for the gas bill and the gas is off, really, there's nothing that you can do. But if the gas is on, turn the stove on, turn the oven on, make sure that it's working properly. Here's what I find sometimes. Because of poor housekeeping habits, some tenants, they may have a stove that's not working properly because they haven't cleaned it. So if you are a tenant and you know that your stove is nasty and you haven't cleaned it in a little while, here's what I strongly recommend. Get yourself some lemon scented, either Ajax or whatever lemon dish detergent you can find. Put it on the grease that's on the stove. Don't do anything. Just let it sit, because the lemon in that detergent will act as a degreaser and eat up or soften up some of that grease, which will make it easier for you to clean. Now, I'm not saying put the detergent on there and just leave it there. You do have to put in the work. So this is just a tip to help you clean some of the grease. True story. I had a tenant who contacted me about maybe 3 weeks ago. So she contacted me. She said, Karissa, my stove caught on fire. So I'm immediately concerned, because I have a heart for my tenants and what I do. So I got my team. We ran over to a rental property, took a look at her stove. I wanted to make sure that she was okay. The kids were okay. The apartment was okay. So we get to this rental property, guys, and there is so much grease and dirt that was built up on the stove that I had no other choice but to tell the tenant that it was her fault for not keeping that stove clean. Yes, that is true. It's the tenant's responsibility to clean that stove, and she did not clean it. It was nasty. It was grease everywhere. I mean, when I say grease, it was just caked up grease, and she hadn't really been in a property that long, but it looked like she had been there for a million years, and she hasn't been there maybe but a year. So in situations like that, that tenant's poor housekeeping was a contributing factor to that fire. So in that situation, based off of the rental lease agreement that I have, that this tenant signed, I am charging that tenant for all the repairs, all the damage, and the replacement of the stove. Can I do that by law? Absolutely, because it's in writing. And so again, it's not what you know, is what you can prove. And so I immediately went out. I immediately took pictures. But while I was there, I had to educate the tenant to let her know, listen, next time, I told her, I'll replace the stove. Okay. It's your responsibility to pay for the costs. So she cried and she boo-hooed and she said, oh, it's not fair. I don't have the money. Okay, no problem. Maybe you get a pass this time, but please consider improving your housekeeping habits, because when you don't clean up, things like this happen. All right. So these are just some tips for landlords to get in. When you get in, make sure you're doing an inspection for repairs and make sure that you're actually doing the repairs. Okay. Here's what I don't recommend. If you know that you are not skilled in making repairs, please pay a contractor or somebody that's professional to do repairs. There's nothing worse than renting from a landlord who will put a Band-Aid over a big hole in the wall, okay, and call it a repair. Tenants deserve better than that. So please treat your tenants with the utmost respect, and tenants, please respect your landlords as well, okay? So in preparing for the storm of evictions that are coming, they are coming. Please prepare yourself for that. So again, landlords, be knowledgeable about the law. Know whether or not you have to have a renter's license or a business license in place before you can take that tenant to court, because it would be a sad day. You waste your time, you waste your money to get a court case. You go before the judge and they dismiss your case because you are not legally running a legit rental property business. Okay, Pete, you said hate that, then I have to repair it. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's nothing worse than that. And so these are just some tips. So tenants, be prepared to have communications, have honest and integral conversations with your landlord. If you know that you are delinquent on your rent, let them know that you would like to enter into a repayment agreement and to see if there is some funding, some money or pots of money available. Don't be afraid to ask for the money because it's available. The government has put millions of dollars in place to help tenants. It is in the best interest of landlords and tenants to work together to get that money. Okay. Capitalize off of the resources that's available in that particular jurisdiction. Okay. Last year, 2020, there were millions of dollars that tenants didn't even capitalize off of. For whatever reason, they didn't reach out, or maybe they didn't show up for appointments. I don't know, but there were millions of dollars available that the government put in place for tenants, and they just did not use it. And so as a landlord, please work with your tenants to get the funding and the resources available. I do hope that the information that I shared today was helpful. I am passionate about sharing information. This is what I do each and every Monday. And again, please, if you found this information helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please also like me on Facebook. Please share this information with others. I am online every Monday. My new time is at 7:30 p.m. Every Monday right here on Facebook and YouTube. This is where you can find me. So this is my information. You can find me on YouTube. That's my YouTube handle, Karissa Spann, Landlord Tenant Coach, as well as on Facebook. Okay, if you have comments, if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comments section. And even if I'm not live, I will still respond. Okay. And I do hope that this information has been helpful for you all. If you have questions, if you have topics that you would like for me to discuss or share, please let me know, because I definitely want to bring information that is relevant for landlords as well as for tenants. Doesn't matter where the rental property is. Okay. All right. You said they don't care, tenants, but you know what? That's a true statement. Thank you so much for sharing that. Some tenants don't care, and that's the unfortunate part about it. Some tenants just really don't care. Hey, Joe, happy Monday, sir. And like I said, that's the unfortunate part about it. You do have tenants who don't care. They will not cooperate. They will not participate. Here's the thing, guys. We can't make people do what they're supposed to do. And I've shared in some of my previous lives here on Facebook. There are some mental health issues that some tenants are experiencing. Sometimes they're embarrassed. They're ashamed. They just don't want to be bothered. Or maybe it's just one of those extra people that's, controlling them in their head or whatever. There are sometimes some substance abuse issues going on. There is a whole host of things that will cause people to act out of character. We can't control who people are and what they do. We can control how we act and how we respond. All right. Caprice, you said, where can you get a good rental agreement? Great question, Caprice. Let me refer you to easylandlord.com. easylandlord.com. You can go online and find that. I'll create or prepare leases for individuals. And if I do that, then I'll charge. So this is free information. All right, go to easylandlords.com. I like easylandlords.com. I use quite a bit. I've used different rental lease agreements, but I like that one in particular because it provides information for a lot of jurisdictions and states. So, Caprice, check that out and let me know how you like that. And thank you for that question. All right, are there any other questions before I bring this to an end? Because I want to make sure that I'm covering as much information as possible. I want to make sure that I'm answering questions. So give me a second. Let me just check my YouTube for questions that may have come in. So give me one moment. Okay, so all right, so that's all of my questions from Facebook. Those are all of the questions from YouTube. And again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Karissa. This is what I do each and every Monday right here on Facebook and YouTube. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave it in the comment section. I will definitely follow up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for my new subscriber. Please like my Facebook page. And I look forward to seeing you all right here next Monday at 7:30 p.m. Bye for now.